Welcome back to the C.T.W. podcast. I'm your host, Quiz Wynn, and I thank you guys for tuning in again. In this episode, I'm coming for your comfort zone. I want to talk to people who have been undermining themselves, undermining the gifts and the potential, the intelligence, the capability, the confidence, the competence that God has placed inside of you, the skills that you've worked at, everything that you have put time in to do in private is now time for you to come out in public and continue to sharpen your gifts and your skills. I think this is something that we as people naturally do. We are looking for comfort. We are looking for security. We are looking for stabilization. And the minute that we find it, one of the scariest things is the minute that we find safety, the minute that we find comfort, the minute that we find stability. One of the scariest things is that is an opportunity for us never to optimize who we really are in God, who we can be at our best, and what our full potential can be. And today I want to talk to people who have been settling for their comfort zone. I want to talk to people who have been settling for instant gratification. I want to talk to people who are fearful and who are scared to step outside of their comfort zone. Whether that may be you've heard God tell you to leave a job, whether you've heard God tell you to leave that relationship, whether you heard God to tell you to step out on faith and trust Him that He will provide a way for you. You are too scared to step out because you have found comfort in doing what you're currently doing. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with what you're currently doing. What I am saying is that you are going to live the rest of your life with the bill of regret if you never at least take a step or you at least take a chance. In Joshua 1:9, he said, Joshua, be strong and courageous. Do not be terrified or dismayed, intimidated, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. One of the things people kind of overlook in that story is that Joshua was Moses' successor, which means that Joshua was the understudy to Moses. So Joshua saw how Moses handled certain situations and circumstances when it came to leading the children of Israel. So when Moses died and when God took his body and hid it so the children of Israel will not go back to it and worship it, Joshua was thrown into a place of power. But the thing about it is that Joshua did not think he was ready for that place of power. God knew he was ready because he studied under Moses, but Joshua did not know whether or not he was ready. So he was a little fearful. He was a little uncertain. And this is why Joshua 1:9 says, be strong and courageous. Do not be terrified or dismayed, intimidated, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. God was speaking to Joshua, letting him know, like, hey, regardless of how you're feeling in this moment, be strong. Regardless of what you think in this moment, be courageous, because I'm going to be with you regardless. And so what's already in you, I'm going to be with you. And so I'm going to help you bring out and use what's already in you. But if it was not for Joshua continually being submitting to God's authority and continually taking the steps and coming outside of his comfort zone, God would have never used the picture of his life as a representation of how he helped people get out of certain situations. Most people don't understand that being in your comfort zone is the quickest way to kill your confidence, is the quickest way to kill your courage, is the quickest way to kill your potential. Because when you are settling for comfort, when you're settling for that desire for stability, there's nothing wrong with it. But when you're settling for stability at a level that's less than God's best for you, what you're telling God is that, God, all the gifts, all the talents, all the skills, all the pain, all the persecution, everything that I went through in a previous season of my life was a waste of time. And I know most people don't look at it that way because they went through such a harsh season in an earlier stage of their life that they don't even look at it as they're settling. because as long as they are not in a season or they're not experiencing a season like they previously experienced, they think they are living a better life. They think they're living the life that God actually has for them. And so you have to understand is that if you're currently living your life and your life is not full, it's not abundant, it is not exceedingly abundantly above all that you can ever ask, think, or imagine, if it's not overflowing in every aspect, you are still living on a level that's less than God's best for you. Most people have settled for their comfort zone because their comfort zone is better than a previous season that was very harsh, a season that was very unstable, a season that was very uncertain, a season that was very fearful. So most people settle for their comfort zone because their comfort zone is better than the season that they got out of. And I would like to challenge you today to identify some situations and scenarios and some events in your life, some areas where you can step outside of your comfort zone. I'm not telling you to step outside of your comfort zone in every area, because if you try to do it in every area, you'll become overwhelmed, and then that will do more harm than it will do good. Pick an area in your life where you have, or where you've identified you're being comfortable. You have settled for less than God's best for you, whether that is financially, whether that is health and relationships, well, whether that is health, whether that is relationships, whether that is at a job, whether that is in marriage, whether that is in any form. Pick an area of your life, sit down, write it down, be aware, ask the Holy Spirit to give you insight and understanding, to enlighten you on areas of your life that you don't even realize that you're settling. 1 Corinthians 15:33, it says, "Do not be deceived, bad company corrupts good character." In that verse, the very first part of it says, "Do not be deceived." If there was not a possibility for us as people to be deceived, that wouldn't have been in the verse. So what the writer of Corinthians, which is Paul, what he was saying is that do not deceive yourself. Do not put yourself in a situation where you are lying to yourself, where you are giving yourself half truths, where you're giving yourself false realities. Because if you do, what tends to happen is that you start to open up avenues, you start to open up ways, you start to open up things that in your mind and in your character and in your personality that allows you to now take things on that were not originally designed to be in your mind. You start to take on mindsets, you start to take on habits, you start to take on certain things that were not originally designed for you to have. But because you're deceiving yourself by hanging with certain people, you're deceiving yourself by saying you're okay with the job that you have. You're deceiving yourself saying you're okay with living a life that's continually ridden with illness and sickness and mental illness and sickness in every aspect. You're deceiving yourself, settling for the relationship that you know you should not be in. You're deceiving yourself knowing that the marriage that you're in is not fully optimal and it's not doing and it's not fully glorifying God. You're deceiving yourself saying that this level of finances I'm okay with. Most people don't realize that it's easy for us to deceive ourselves. Jeremiah 17:9 says, "The heart is deceitful. Do not trust your heart, because who can examine or trust the wicked way that is within it?" And that's Jeremiah 17:9. So we have to understand as people that it's easy for us to deceive ourselves. It's easy for us to put ourselves in a situation that, as long as it's better than a previous season that we're in, as long as it's better than where we previously came from, as long as the relationship is better than the relationship we just got out of, as long as the job is paid more than the job we just left, as long as the church we just left is better than the church we're going to, as long as wherever we just came from or wherever we just left is better than where we currently are, we have a higher possibility of deceiving ourselves and staying there. And then we'll tell ourselves that this is where God wants me to be. Most of the time, and we don't even realize, even you on watching this and even myself, there are times where God has allowed us as people to be people, places, things, scenarios, circumstances, and situations. They were specific assignments. And then next thing you know, those assignments end up becoming seasons. Those assignments end up becoming a elongated part of our life because we did not do our necessary work to not deceive ourselves. So we end up staying at jobs God only meant for us to be there for 3 months. We end up staying in relationships that God never intended for us to be there, or God was using as a stepping stool to develop us in a particular area. We end up taking pay cuts, or we end up taking money at a job that God said, hey, you're not supposed to be here long. Hey, we end up helping people and keeping them around and being friends with them for people that were supposed to be assignments to show and inspire as a representation of how God works. Sometimes the only God that people will see is you. The only God that people will see is you. And so if your life is not evidence, is not inspiration, or is not identification that Christ is working within you, because sometimes they may not be able to get to a church, then now what ends up happening is that you develop the interpersonal relationship with them, and now it's hard for you to let them go. Now it's hard for you to let the job go because now your feelings and emotions are attached to it. Now it's hard for you to let now it's hard for you to let that financial security go because you have developed an emotional attachment to it. These are the things that we as people have a tendency to deceive ourselves about. We all want the best. We all want good things. We all want a great life. And if you're watching this and you say, I don't really want much, and I don't want this, and I don't want that, that means you have developed a mindset where you may feel as if though you're not capable, you're not competent, or you do not deserve a good life. And everybody's life is going to be different. There are going to be different levels of a good life. But if you don't even remotely have the desire to have a good life, you have developed a mindset and you have deceived yourself and settled and made yourself think that it's okay to live where you currently are. And that's something that today I want to talk to you about, is that I don't want to really sugarcoat anything. I didn't really want to sugarcoat anything. I didn't want to come up here and give you a lot of Bible verses. I didn't want to do any of that. I wanted to come to you and challenge you to identify and become aware of yourself, to figure out the areas of your life where you have settled, where you are too comfortable, where you are okay with settling for mediocrity, where you have told yourself, I'm okay. And most people don't realize, or some people don't even realize, that God has gifted you so much. You have so many gifts. You have so many skills. You're so intellectual inclined. God has given you so many talents that your 50% is somebody's 100%. That you're so good at what you do, regardless of what it is, that you can give 25% and it'll still be better than some people's 100%. And because you have figured that out, and because you've now become prideful and you've now become arrogant, and now you've realized that you are good in a particular area, you have settled for giving 25% because everybody else is giving 100 and you're still doing better than them. Just imagine how good you could be if you gave 100%, how much further God will take you, how much further God will trust you with particular things. Because we have to understand that you need to be a person. In order for you to get what God has for you, you need to be a person God can trust. And if you do not fully develop your capacity for God to trust you, He will only allow you to get what He can trust you with. And I think that's something that most people don't really understand when it comes to trusting God and asking God for certain things. God does not give you what you want. God gives you what you can handle. And if you have not developed your capacity, if you have not developed your trust, if you have not developed your heart, if you have not developed yourself in a way for God to be able to trust you in every season of your life, in every aspect, then you will wake up one day and you'll be disappointed with God, thinking that God didn't give you what you want, not understanding that God gave you what you can handle. And most of the time, because we live in a instant gratification society, we live in a world where technology is very prominent, we have now leaned towards the side of quick responses. We have leaned towards the side of quick fixes. We have leaned towards the side of everything must happen fast, not understanding that anything that is great or worth it will take time. I don't care what it is. If you bake and if you cook, you understand that I understand this from my grandmother, but she would start cooking for Thanksgiving a couple days ahead of time. She would let the turkey marinate, and she would let the turkey sit in the oven, and she would do certain things in the collards, and she would do certain things because great things take time. And now how society is formed and how everything is going because of technology, instant gratification, is that we can now go buy a turkey and we can put it out 30 minutes before Thanksgiving. We can now go buy a cake and have it ready 10 minutes before it's time for the event. And I think that's something we need to understand, is that while technology does provide very good benefits, there are certain things that when it comes to foundational building, when it comes to growth and development, when it comes to having a firm foundation, that time is the only test, and time will be the only thing that will be able to know whether or not, and to show whether or not you're able to stand when things get hard. And if you are too busy, and if you are too comfortable in your comfort zone, what tends to happen is that the minute that something does not look comfortable, the minute that something is outside of your comfort zone, the minute that something does not challenge you, or if you do not challenge yourself, we will abandon something that is for us because it's no longer comfortable to us. We will leave a relationship that is actually supposed to be for us, but because it's outside of what we're comfortable with handling, we will abandon it. We will leave a job that God actually gave us favor in and is going to give us quantum leaps in that. Shout out to Pastor Darius Daniels for that. But we're going to leave a job that we're going to actually have supernatural growth in, because we are thinking that we are feeling that because it's outside of our comfort zone, we're not supposed to be there. We will not follow dreams or chase dreams because we're too fearful to leave our comfort zone, because that's something that most people don't really understand, that when you walk with God and when you're trusting God and when you're stepping in faith, 2 Corinthians 5:7 says, "For we walk by faith, not by sight." So when you're stepping out on faith, you have to understand when you step, you're stepping in hopes that God puts another step there. You're not stepping because you see the step. You're stepping saying, God, I trust that you're going to put another step there. And so most of the time people won't leave their comfort zone because they feel as if, though, if they don't see the next step, it's not going to work. Hebrews 11:6 says, without faith, it is impossible to please God, and he is a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. So you have to understand that God honors faith. God will open doors for people, for places, for things, for you when you have faith. When you decide to step outside of your comfort zone, God will open doors that you never thought would be open. He will speed up your process. He will literally give you supernatural growth because you decided to activate a principle called faith. And the reason that most people don't get to certain areas of their life is because the Bible literally talks about God has given each and every person dealt to every person their own measure of faith. Sometimes people only have enough faith to get out of a certain season that they're in. Sometimes they don't have enough faith to see it manifest. Sometimes they don't have enough faith to see it develop. Sometimes they don't have enough faith to continue to go up even more. They only have enough faith to get out of a previous season that was not good for them. And so you have to understand that if you're trusting God for something, if you want to grow and you want to develop, you have to get outside of your comfort zone. You have to grow. You have to develop. You have to do it scared. You have to do it and be courageous. You have to do it when you don't see a way out. You have to do it when you don't see the next step. You have to do it. And I think that's something that most people are missing when it comes to a relationship with God, is that yes, you can be saved. Yes, you can be born again. But if you do not have faith, you're going to live your life on a level that's less than God's best for you. And I want all of us to be able to experience that. But you will not be able to experience God's best for you if you don't step outside your comfort zone. You don't walk in faith. You don't literally understand that God honors faith. And so I hope this helps you. And if it does, leave a comment down below and let me know if it helped. But I'll see you guys next time. And I appreciate you guys for watching. Peace.